what you might call
There you go.
a gadata.
It's good quality.
Guys, Hagadata. Hagadata.
Got it.
Maybe just move that to someplace where you can
There you go.
put it carefully away.
Phew. That'll work out.
All right. So we are going to refer to our pasuk in today's chittas. Actually, I don't know if you guys have had time to learn your chittas.
Oh, yeah.
But it's actually in today's chittas, right near the end, a couple of psukim before Chamishi. And it's dealing with the union of Chometz on Pesach, and the union of, first of all, there's a mitzvah, Lois Aseh forbids us to eat Chometz, and then there's another mitzvah Aseh, which tells us in Pasuk Yud Tes, chapter Yud Beis. And it tells us that Shivas Yomim, the whole 7 days of the Chag of Pesach, Shiur, that he called 11, Shiur, Lo Yimotzei Bevateichem. It's not allowed to be found in your houses. Key, and the reason for that is, well, I don't know if it's a key by way of giving a reason, but let's learn it that way. Botechem key, kol ha'eichel machmetzes. Anybody who eats chometz, v'nichraso, and hanefesh ahi, then that soul will be literally cut out or cut off from Adas Yisrael, Bager uve'ezrach ha'oretz. He will have what's called the punishment of koretz. If he eats chometz, why is it called? Machmetzes. Because machmetzes is more referring. There are two things that are forbidden: the actual resultant of leaven, which is what we call bread or chometz, and then there's another issue to actually eat the leaven itself. You actually eat the thing which makes things, and that's the Russian kol machmetzes, that which makes other things chometz, which is soya. That's forbidden to eat be'isa koretz, and you're not allowed to find that in your houses all the 7 days. And then later, at the end of Pasha Boy, right near at the end, in Shvi, we have that we're told once again. In Pasuk Zion, chapter Yud Gimel, Pasuk Zion, it's written Matzos Yeyochel Eish Shivas Hayomim. Matzos, I'm not going into the deal of that lesson right now, but that demands an explanation. Matzos will be eaten the whole 7 days, and they shall not be seen by you. It shouldn't be possible for you to see chametz. Where am I? That you're not allowed to see during the whole 7 days of Pesach. You must not see. It must not be findable or visible in your whole realm. In other words, love davki just in your house, but let's say you have a field and you have a yard and the whole thing. Yeah, let Moshe in. Moshe, find yourself a place up here. No, sit in. Sit into the table. Oh. So here we see that we are warned both on chometz and on leaven, both hadikot. Both chometz is the produce of leaven, like bread or biscuits or cake, and so'ir, that's the very leaven which makes them into chometz. So that's not allowed to be found. It must not be in your house or in your whole gvul the whole 7 days. So here we see an amazing thing, that not only you're not allowed to eat chometz, or so'ir, or leaven, and if you do, God forbid, then you're chayav koresh, but you're not allowed to find it in your house, Klali. Not allowed to be present inside your house, or even your whole gvul. If you're a person who has a whole big sodeh or a whole big area, also no chometz is allowed to be found there. Now that's not an isha koresh. You're not chayav koresh for that, but it's what we call halal. It's a lo yisaseh shebetorah. So ask yourself the question on the part of the intelligent reader, why should it be that chometz, you can't even find it, you can't even have it around, or not even a kazayas of it. And the truth of the matter is, even less than a kazayas, you're still over an isa, maybe not mamish, the isa, you're not chayav malkis, but you're doing a thing which the Torah doesn't want you to do, even if it's left. So some people want to suggest that because you're chayav koresh, if you eat it, then it shouldn't be laying around. Because if it's laying around, then you're allowed to eat it. You're allowed to make a mistake and pick it up and eat it. But to say and that's what the pasuk says over there in your base where we started, it shouldn't be found in your houses, because whoever eats chometz is chayav koresh. So some people learn that that's, as it were, as if I was saying that the reason I don't want it around your house, because you might come to pick it up and eat it, and if you do, cholili chayav koresh. So we can't have that hanging around, because it's dangerous material. But it's hard to say that, because on Yom Kippur, it's hard to say that's the whole reason. Because on Yom Kippur, you're not allowed to eat at all on Yom Kippur. And if you do eat, then you're chayav koresh. So if that's the case, then you shouldn't be allowed to have any food around your house on Yom Kippur. You should have to drive out all food, not eat, but you should have to drive it out. We don't find that. We don't find that on Kippur you have to get rid of food. You can have food all around the house, but you're just not allowed to eat it. And we're not worried that you're going to come and eat it. But on Pesach we're terribly concerned. We don't want it around. You're allowed to have it, and even a crumb or piece of Pesach, you've got to get rid of it. It's got to be burnt. And why don't we run out on Erev Yom Kippur and burn all our food? We don't find that. But by chometz, we find you have to go out and burn it, and you have to, all sorts of dinim, and you have to search for it. Came along our Seder, they've got to search around for it on the night before. So that would tend to indicate that chometz, if you want to sit and put your things on the table, do it. That would am I getting out of range here? That would tend to indicate. That would tend to indicate that the eating of chometz are very, very rare inyan. But we need to understand what is this inyan. So in order to get to that, I want to sort of make an introduction. And the introduction might take a few minutes, and then gradually we'll work around to what I'm trying to get at. And that is that since we all live in Tzfat at the present moment, and some of us have even settled in Tzfat, then we have to say something over in the name of the Arizal. The Arizal, he was a Tzfasa. He lived in Tzfat. So the Arizal said a very interesting thing. And he said that before you daven in the morning, and before you can make any kesher with the Eibishter, right at the beginning of the davening, after the first brachas, after Birkas HaShachar, you have to take on yourself a positive commandment. Does anybody know what positive commandment?
You have to l'recha
Amar
k'mam.
Rabbi Akiva zeh klal
You have to
gadol
take on
b'teilah.
yourself the positive commandment of Yahavto l'reyacho kamoicho. And the Arizal said that it's brought down in a couple, 2 or 3 places in the works of the Arizal. The Rabbeinu Chaim Vital wrote several works which are all just direct quotes from what he heard from the Arizal. And there's a big work which he wrote, the Shara Kavonas. What the Shara Kavonas is a sefer which tells all the Kavonas, Al Pi Kabbalah, that Arizal taught him, that you're supposed to have when you're davening. So right at the beginning of the Shara Kavonas, he writes that his teacher, he was called the Arizal, my teacher, Moy Arizal. So he said, my teacher told me that you have to be tremendously careful before you start davening, to be makabel the mitzvah from Be'ahavta l'recha kamoicha. And he said, Davki alidei, that what you join together with all other Yidden, and all Yidden become, as it were, one. And they all join up and they're all loving one the other, then their prayers go up to heaven. Otherwise, he said, it's not gonna work, yeah. And then he says that the Arizal said to him that you have to be one with everybody. It's not just enough to love him, but you got to mamish be one with everyone. And if your chava has a simcha, then you must find a way to join in his simcha and feel as if it was your simcha. That's put down our Yom Yom, b'shem our Rabbi about that. And then it's also written that if he chas v'sholem, he has a trouble, an atzorah, then you must join in and suffer the pain of his Torah, just like that was your own. And he writes a whole big thing there, that the Rizal said particularly if there's any group that are all together, learning together, and serving Hashem, they do things together. Yeah, like all of the members of the yeshiva, for example. You guys are all together. So he said there has to be avos chaverim zeh lazeh, באופן שכל אחד יאהב את חברי כנפשו. You have to love one the other like your own soul. That's what he writes, the Arizal. Or the Arizal didn't write it, I mean the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital writes it. And the very interesting thing is that the Rambam brings down in Hilchos Deyas, in his great work, in the Yad HaChazoki, in Hilchos Deyas, the Rambam brings down that you have to love everybody from Israel, kegufcha, like your body. In the Kisvei Arizal it's written, kenafshoy. And the Rambam writes you have to love everybody like your own guf. So l'choira, I mean there's a whole big discussion about it, you know, whether the Rambam learned Kabbalah, whether he didn't, yeah. You know the whole argument.
The Rebbe says he was
the Friedrich Rebbe. The Friedrich Rebbe Paskins in a Sicha that it's a Dova Borough that the Rambam was a great Makubal. That's what he brings down, yeah. You remember the Shita of Lubavitcher that the Rambam learned Kabbalah. He couldn't have learned the Kisvei Arizal because he was a long time ago. But why is it the Rambam writes Gufcha and the Arizal writes Kenafshe? So the Indians, we could say that really the Arizal with the word Nefesh, he also means the whole of you, not just part of you, but the whole of you. In other words, that the word Kenafshecho can mean in Russian, particularly in Aramaic, it can mean yourself, you know, your whole self. The word Nefesh can mean your whole self. So it can include also the body, not just the soul, but the body. Well, that's how you have to love another person, says the Rambam, just like your own guf. Yeah, and everybody knows how careful he is about his own guf, right? And how he doesn't want any interferences, lila with his guf, you know. Everything has to be outside his too, and he's always taking medicines, and you know he's doing exercise. His guf has to be, you know, just. Yeah, that's the way you have to love another person. ask yourself the question, and so the Alter Rebbe brings us down in two places. He brings it down in the Shulchan Aruch, and he brings it down in the Siddur. So you've all seen it in the Siddur. But I'm just going to tell you what's written in the Shulchan Aruch. In the Shulchan Aruch, it's written in Siman Mem Vov, Oyer Chaim, Siman Mem Vov, right near the end. The Alter Rebbe brings there, after he talks about the blessings in the morning near the Birchas HaShachar, right near the end of that chapter, the Alter Rebbe writes that when you come in to the shul, when you step into the shul in the morning, you should say a certain pasuk, yeah? And that's a pasuk that we say in the morning. We say Ma Toivo Elayank and so on. Let's say that pasuk with another pasuk. Also he brings that, and then he says Ubeknisosai, and when you enter the shul, you kabbalah along. You should take on yourself the mitzvah of Ve'ahavta le'orecha kamocha. That's why the Alter Rebbe writes in the Shulchan Aruch, and that's meduyach according to what's written in the Shara Kavonas and the Pri Eitz Chaim, other places in the Kisvei Arizal, that the Arizal said before you enter the shul, you should already take the mitzvah saseh shem ve'ahavta l'orecha kamocha. So the Alter Rebbe writes that when you go in, already you should be thinking about that. And in the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe writes another expression altogether. In the Siddur, he writes, Nochen Noima. If you look it up, just before Ma Toivu, after Birchas HaShachar, Birchas HaTorah, the Alter Rebbe writes, Nochen Loima, Loima, V'ahavta le'orecha kamocha, koidem atfilah. So l'chayra, that's slightly different than what he writes in the Shulchan Aruch. Because in the Shulchan Aruch he says you have to be makabel on yourself, the mitzvah. And before davening he writes that it's right, nochen, loima, that you should say, hareini makabel alai, I'm taking on myself the mitzvah of ve'ahavta l'orecha kamocha, and you should actually say it out b'dibur. Because in the Shulchan Aruch he just says yikabel alai. Yikabel alai can mean anyway, I take it on myself. Yeah? So maybe I didn't say it, but I took it on myself. Over here in the city he writes, it's right to say it. You should say it out. Areini makabel alai mitzvah saseh. So also the shaila, why does the Alter Rebbe write nochen loima? Nochen loima means it's a right thing to say. You don't say you should do it. He just says it's a right thing to do it. So it's brought down in the works of the Rabbi. Also the Rabbi talks about this in a place, that if I say nochen loima, and I don't say you are mechuyev to do this, yeah, then that's what we call reshus. I'm saying that this is like, it's like a permission. It's not a demand on you. It's a permission. Therefore, it's good that you do it. If, for example, the Gemara says in Masechta Brachos, in the famous argument between Rav and Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua, on page Kof Chesed is as to whether tefillas arvis, the prayer at night time, as to whether that's a choiva or whether it's a reshus. And Rabbi Gamliel, he holds that it's a choiva, and Rabbi Yoshua, he held that it was only a reshus. Now, why they held that way, it's got to do with other issues. I don't want to get involved, that's not what the Shiur is about. But just suffice it to say that if I say tefillas arvis is only a reshus, that means I'm not mechuyev to daven, but I should, it's like a permission, and it's a right thing that I do it. But nobody's going to say to me later, why didn't you do that? It's something you have to take on yourself, as it were. That's the inyan for reshus. So that's the way we paskin. Yeah, we paskin like Rabbi Yeshua that tefillas arvis reshus. Well, I see you guys are very calm. I would have thought somebody would have expressed a bit of surprise. The tefillas arvis is only reshus. Yeah, but later on, it's brought down in the Rishonim that the actual Kol Yisrael kiblu alayim choiva. All Yidden have taken on themselves the v'or a choy. A choy means a full obligation, even though it's really only a reshus. So comes along the Alter Rebbe in Shiur Shiurim, one of mine, in the Kutei Torah in Shiur Shiurim, and the Alter Rebbe says that that what it's a Reshus means it's even higher than all the other tefillahs. Yeah.
Wow.
You guys know the famous joke. You don't know the famous joke that in Lubavitch, whenever you come to a certain point, the Chassidus will explain to you that's the highest thing in the world. There's nothing higher than that. And then when you move on to the next thing, also you find, no, this is the highest of all highest. Then you move on to something else, oh, this is the highest. You never know. You're always in the highest of all highest, and this is just mevatel everything else. So the Alter Rebbe says, he says, enough in Lukutei about Tulish, Shachrit. He said, there's nothing bigger than that. That's but when it comes to Arvis, he said that Arvis is like, that is the greatest, and that's the tefillah. He said that by davening Mariv, you give yourself koyach to daven Shachrit.
Ah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And the two tefillahs together, they give you koyach to daven Mincha. Which really means that Mincha is maybe the highest, but you can never sort it out. That's why this is the highest, this is the highest. So, why does the Alter Rebbe say that Tefillah's Arvis is such a high? Only he said over there that Arvis, if in Russian, Orev means sweet. That Tefillah's Arvis is the sweetest of all the davening. It's the highest, and that's why it's a Reshus. And he says it's so high that you can't be obliged to do it. The Avish only obliges you things which are got a certain level, as it were, in his shoulders, coming down from Melakus into the world. Or something which is so high that it's mamish atzmas, can't be commanded to do that. You can only just be recommended. You can be told, listen, we'd really like you to do this, man. But not that you mamish mechuyev. That's what he says over there. That's what he says over there. Aber mehr, it follows, Rafi said, that Tefillah's Arvis is, and then when you go on another page further, you get into the middle of Rebbe, and we all say, oh, the greatest thing is Shachrit, and forget it, this is the greatest thing. Yeah. But anyway, that's the way it goes. Nimtzal Rafi said that the Alter Rebbe has explained that something which is only a Reshus, that is very, very high. And it's so high that you can't be obliged to do it. You can only, as it were, recommended to do it. So that's why the Alter Rebbe writes in the Siddur, and he says, Nochein loimar, it's only a right thing and a nice thing to say, and you have to say it. In the Shulchan Aruch, he doesn't say you have to say it. He says, you should say it. Why? Because when you say something, you're committing yourself to it much more than when you do. If you say something out, then your speech involves you in it much more. And it's well known. And therefore, when something is stated and a person actually gives it out, the diva, he gets drawn in, and he's committed to it much deeper than if he just thinks about it. And that's why you have to say everything b'dibur, in Tefillah, for example. It's not enough just to think about it, you have to actually say it. And so here the Alter Rebbe says it's like a Reshus to say it. You've got to bring it out in to do it. And you have to say, Hareini mekabel alai, I'm taking on myself dominion for Arvis Yisrael. So I don't like talking about negative things. We're not going to go and do anything negative, but you guys know the story. You don't know the story? So you say, well, what story am I supposed to know here? You know the story about the 9 days with the Arizal, you know the story? No. The Arizal passed away on Hay Menachemol. And he passed away, he was mistalik from the world in the 9th day. And so what happened was like this, that before the 9 days began, it was in Sof Tammuz, the Rizal was out in the field learning with his Talmidim, he was teaching them a whole thing in Kabbalah. And then he came to a part of the Zohar Kodesh where he says that he doesn't have permission from heaven to reveal this. This is such a profound an amazing Indian that he can't give them over. So all the time I said, what do you mean? You can't give us over? What do you mean with that? You know? So they started sort of like, pushing and persuading the Arizal that he should give it over. He said, no. And then a day or so later, they said, no, we're not letting you go away, you have to tell us. So the Arizal said, look, he's going to reveal this to them, but he's making a condition. What was the condition? That they had just founded a new shkuna in Sfat. Yeah, it was very interesting. Just like today, they're building shkunot. You know that? What was the shkuna? It was a shkunat Talmidi Arizal. All the people that they were, like the very devoted Talmidim, that all built little houses and diras in an area together, and they wanted all to learn together. Like we said, the Arizal said you must learn together, because this is a great part of learning properly through the yichud, of everybody together. So he said, okay, so listen. He said, I'm prepared to reveal this, but he said, you must be very careful that in this shkuna, there be only actors. There must not be any chiluchei deis, or how do you call it, quarrels, or anything. They only ava ve'actors kol hazman. He said, if you're mekabel on yourself that, then I can reveal this. Because he said, it's such a high thing, it has to have absolute actors amongst everybody. Otherwise I can't. I don't have the permission to do it. So they said, oh, yours, of course, anyway, we're all good friends and we all love one another. Fine, no trouble. So the Arizal said over to them what was the pshat in the Zohar. He gave them over the secret. And that was just before Rosh Chodesh, Menachem. And shortly after Rosh Chodesh, Menachem, there was two of the wives in the Shkuna had a disagreement. They started, and they sort of started talking sharply, one to the other. And so what happens is, husbands try to be good husbands, not always in the best way, but they try to be good husbands. So they were trying to take part of their wives. And the next thing is that they've developed a squabble between two of the Talmidim, and they spoke very sharply, one to the other. And that night they came into the shul, and they saw the Arizal was sitting over in another corner, not where he usually sat. So they said, what are you doing over here? So the Arizal said, there's a gezerah min hashamayim, a very severe gezerah, but he didn't want to tell him what it was. And then a day or two later, he passed away. Yeah. So it's brought down in Sforim, in the great Sforim, it's brought down that the reason was because they didn't keep their promise, they didn't keep, and actors is so tremendously important. But if I've told a number of people, I've tried as much as I can, it doesn't really matter certain things, The main thing is that the actors that we have to be. Yeah, I mean, everything is important, but the main thing is the actors, and the kesher, one with the other. Upon him, that's all. That's all introduction. That's all. Let's get now over to this chometz business, and then from the chometz, we'll be able to go a bit further. We'll get part of from the chometz, then we'll be able to go a bit further. What's the inyan for chometz? And we see that the inyan for chometz is so, it's brought down in all the great Sforim, that there's no inyan in halacha like chometz on Pesach. Just incomparable, we don't find. Because chometz is, the Gemara brings down in the sect of Sochim, that the Rabbanan Paskin, that chometz is also b'ma shehu. When I get to eat, chometz, do you know what mashuhu is?
Something?
Anything.
Anything?
I mean, mashuhu means anything.
Oh.
Infinite, how do you call it, an infinitesimal crumb falls into a tafshi or even to anything that you're eating, into a glass of water, anything like that. Forbidden on Pesach. Also, b'mashu. You're not chayav koreis until you eat a kazayah. But also, Beklau, it's forbidden even a mashu. It's that's just something absolutely amazing. And then we find when I get to this issue of not having it around in the house. That's called Bal Yeroe or Bal Yemotzei. You're not allowed to see it and you're not allowed to find it. And they're two different isurim. The great counters of the mitzvahs bring down, they're two separate isurim. You're over shnei lavim. If you have chometz lying around, you're over lo yeroeh, and you're also over lo yemotzei. They basically mean the same thing, but the Torah, Hashem stated them separately. So what's this whole thing for chometz? You know, and everybody's machmir, all sorts of chumras. You know, people have from their family, they have different traditions, and it's brought down in the great words of the great poskim that you must not interfere with anybody if he has a family chumrah, and you think that chumrah is a little bit over the fence, but you shouldn't stop him. Let him go ahead with it, because on chometz, all the chumras are okay. Yeah, I said, what that? Any chumrah which anybody has, let him have it. Normally you would say to a person, no, come on. Or on chometz, no. I'm sorry, on Pesach. Chometz or Pesach, bro. Yeah, I'm going to ask yourself, what's this? What's this? So, comes along, I mentioned to you once in a class, there's one of the great Polish Rabbi called the Bnei Yisoscha. I don't know if you ever heard him. The Rabbi Medino. Now, he wrote a sefer called Derek Pukudecha. Derek Pukudecha. And that means the way of the mitzvahs of Hashem, your mitzvahs, meaning Hashem. So, I used to have, in the old days, I had that sefer when I was in Tel Aviv. But since I arrived in Sfar, I haven't been matzli to bring all my Sfarim up here yet. Only about half of them. The other half is still in a shul in Tel Aviv. About 70 boxes. Anyway, I had the Sefer Derek Puchot, so I miss it, you know. So I was, a few months ago, I was in a store up here on the main street. It's forbidden for me to go into a Sfarim store, even just an ordinary one. So I always have to buy something. So I walked into the Sfarim store, and I'm just, looking around, sort of, all of a sudden, boom, I see the Sefer, the Derek Puchot from the Biur Shmela. Medina was sitting there on the shelf, a nice new print of it. So I said, oh, wow. I got a good excuse to buy it. It's in Tel Aviv. Who knows when I'm going to get it? And here I got it sitting on the shelf. So I asked him how much it cost, and I dig in my pockets, and like a bolt of lightning, I'm out of the shop. Because if I stay there any longer, I'll buy who knows. So anyway, it's written in the Torah Puchot from the Yishmel Benegeh to Chometz. And he says, what is the whole inyan for chometz? He said, chometz indicates the chet eitz hadas. That Adam Arishan, and as so he brings there an opinion, that one of the, it's also brought down in Derech Mitzvah, that he brings an opinion from the Gemara, that what was the fruit of the tree of eitz hadas tov ura? What fruit was it?
Chita.
Oh. There's one opinion that it was a chita. Yeah. That they ate a bit of wheat. In other words, that the actual shorish of chet in the world began with wheat. Began with wheat. Of Amira, he says that the whole inyan of wheat is, wheat's a perfect thing. It's a creation from Hashem. But he said, what's good about wheat is that it can be matzah. But he said, if it's chometz, it's not good. So what is not good about it? If it's chometz, why is it not good? So I want to tell you guys a little story. So you say, well, he's always telling stories, but we can't get moving, or we can't keep up with him. So I'll tell you a little story. What was the story? I once in Kwachabad, during my years in there, by the way, an amazing thing, a guy in Russia, a friend of mine, he was an American, he found just now, he sent me an email. He found a letter that the Rebbe wrote to me about Toshin Chof Ches. Yeah, Toshin Chof Ches to now is quite a few years. Yeah. And there's a little footnote at the end. The Rebbe writes in his holy Ksaviyah, a little footnote. Yeah, I remember how it got over to America. I don't know, but anyway, apparently they didn't send it out like Hatchila or whatever. But this guy Agvir, he bought the letter or something. He paid somebody money and he gave him. And he's got quite a few other letters, not just mine. And now this Talmud of mine, he lives in Russia. He was in America, and he met up with this queer, and he saw that letter. And he said, "Wait a minute, that's my rabbi from the yeshiva." You know, so the guy said, "Okay, fork out." You know. So he paid money for it. I don't want to say how much. He paid money for it, and he sent an email to me just the last couple of days, and he asked me, "Is that really to me?" And I can tell from that little thing written at the bottom, it could only be to me. The Rabbi wouldn't have said that to anybody else. So I'm going to raise the show. I'm going to cash in. You understand?
Take the advice, huh?
Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to offer him a little bit, and we'll see what he says. Anyway, what was I talking about at the beginning?
Chametz, the letter.
It's something about Chabad and something. Yeah, anyway, I forgot. That's the trouble with me. I get involved and I forget about things. Anyway.
It's das.
Oh, yeah. So there was a Talmud came up to me once in Chabad and he said, "Listen, it's coming up to Skisler. I want to learn a real good mimer, you know, I want to learn something really." He said, "Give me a mimer. You know, you tell me your mimer shvia. You have to give me a mimer." You know, I don't know. So all of a sudden it just dropped into my head. I said, "There's amazing hemshah from the Rebbe Rashab in Tofreish Ayin Zayin." It's one of the latter years of the Rebbe Rashab's morning. So I said to him, learn that hemshah. It starts in this and this mimer. So fine, he was pleased and I was pleased. Everybody's pleased. He goes away. I meet him about a week, couple of days after you to Skisler. I met up and he said, "Rabbi," he said, "what are you doing to people?" I said, "What am I doing to people? God forbid, what's up with you?" So he said, "You ruined my whole life." He said, "You ruined my life." I said, "What did I do?" He said, "You shouldn't have told me to learn that mimer." He said, "Once I've learned that mimer, I can't live with myself." So I said, "What's written there?" I remember what's written there. And I began to see what his problem was. He said, it's written there, what was the Chet Eitz Hadas? What caused Adam Harishon to fall into such a... Adam Harishon was the most amazing person. How come he fell into such a Chet, what's it say? So he says that the Rebbe Rashab writes over there, I'm not sure if he brings the Baal Shem Tov or Kol HaPratim, but he mentions the B'Shem Baal Shem Tov, as you do it, that the Baal Shem Tov once said that Adam Harishon, he used to, even though he was down here in the world, he used to go up to the high, world. Even though he was here, he could sort of just go up there, Yeah. So once he went up into the very high world, and he said he wants to go from this heichal, this great hallway where all the certain tzaddikim are, and he wants to go to another one. So they said, normally we don't let it, but you're Adam Harishon, you can do it. So he did. So when he finished in one heichal, he was walking to the other, all of a sudden for a minute, he sort of said to himself, "Wow, that was pretty good. That was amazing. I was in there. There's all these amazing Yehudim, Alyoinim, and I saw these amazing Giluim. And Adam Harishon had a small moment where he said, "Oh, that was good." What did he mean by that? He meant to say, I'm pretty hot cooking, If I can go up into all these high elements, so if for a second, he sort of had a feeling, that this is really great, in a very delicate way. That's what caused him to be able to hate. It's you're not allowed to feel yourself. You're supposed to feel, if you feel yourself and you're proud of yourself, that is, how do you call it, training. That is absolutely out. And the Rebbe Rasha writes there about Yeshus and about Heragishatzma. You have to do everything only self-effacedly, bittul as it's called but bittul for yourself, not for another person. You're not allowed to be mevatel the other person. You have to be mevatel yourself. So, Baal Shem Tov says that's the beginning. When he came back down, that's when he was able to hate that. In other words, that what caused the whole thing, and that's why he said, now I can't live with myself. He said, because if I just feel myself on anything, then I'm like I'm causing the hate. He said, how can you live with yourself anymore? He said, you've ruined my life. I said, I'm really sorry, but that's an amazing hemshon, isn't it? He said, yes, it is. So, that's the story. So that's what the Rabbi Melech Medinoy in the Sefer Derech B'Chudera, he says it in a slightly different way, but he says that the whole source of the Chet Tzeit does was, how do you call it, Milas Atzma. He felt himself, and then that leads eventually to, as it were, you're doing Hepech of what Hashem really requires of you. Because you feel yourself. So if you feel yourself, so you also know something. So you don't know anything. Only Hashem knows. And the Rebbe, that's the same address basically. I mean, the Rebbe, he doesn't know what Hashem wants anyway. Therefore, that was the Chedei Tzadat. So he says that the reason we eat matzah, and the reason we have to be mavatel chomet completely, is because chomet is like filling the soul. And that's the shiur of the Chedei Tzadat. We have to be on Pesach, we have to be matakein, the Chedei Tzadat, then we eat matzah. What is matzah? What is matzah?
Flat.
Matzah is bittul. But the Alter Rebbe brings in the Siddur, the famous Maimon, in Hoidul, straight after Baruch Shoma, we say, Mizmel Seder, over there. The Alter Rebbe's got a Maimon, and he says, what's the difference between chometz and matzah? I'm asking all these sort of big general questions today. What's the difference between chometz and matzah?
Chometz is all
So the
puffed
Alter
up.
Rebbe says an amazing thing. He said they got the same spelling.
Oh, never mind.
They have the same spelling, except that chometz is with a ches, and matzah is with a hay. Otherwise, it's the same thing. So he said, what's the difference? What's the difference between a ches and a hay?
Closed.
A ches is a roof and a side and another side. There's a little opening at the top. The regular small doesn't reach all the way up to the top. There's a little bit open. The ches is closed all the way around. The ches is 3 lines and they're all closed. Up, across, down, they're all closed. Oh, but the hay is also up, across, down, but he's got a little piece open. So the Alter Rebbe says that little piece open, that is the bittul to Hashem. He said, you're open, as it were, to the will of Hashem. And you've left something, you built your life, or whatever, at the top there's an opening, and that lets Hashem in. And that's a matzah. Was it the chometz? Everything's closed. And he called it closed shop. Everything's closed. And what there's a big opening at the bottom. So he was very sharply the Alter Rebbe. And he said that cholila you can fall down through the opening at the bottom. You guys are very minded.
Everything's being.
You see, you can fall down. And I come to it that the difference between chometz and matzah is that little opening at the top. That's the whole difference. And there's a difference between beetle and filling yourself. You follow? That's the difference. That's the whole difference between chometz and matzah. Matzah is you don't feel yourself. And therefore matzah is you've opened the door, you let Hashem in. So you go, you drop down. Not you lose, God forbid. You gain. You drop down and you're very posher and you're very emistic and everything's fine. Oh, but if you close off the door, then you're chometz. Everything is yes, and he does. And no, that's not good. So comes along the Alter Rebbe, now I'm quoting the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe says in Likutei Torah in Pasha Chukas, it is, the Alter Rebbe says, why is it that by Yitzias Mitzrayim, there's all this business with the chometz? And he says you can't eat, can't even a mashu, as we pointed out before. And you got to get rid of it. You got to drive it out and don't burn it. And if you leave anything laying around, you're even Lisa with that chapach. He said, what is that? So the Alter Rebbe said, because chometz is like we said, hergishatzma. He said, if you have hergishatzma, don't take it too much sahar. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to become besimcha. So he said, if you have hergishatzma, then you fall into limitation. He said, listen, me, I can't do that. That's too much for me. This is beyond me. I'm not for that. I'm for what? Because But if you're matzaddik, then you say, you name it, we do it. Whatever. We'll do it. It's another life altogether. So the Alter Rebbe said the word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, is from the word Meita. Mitzrayim is from the word Meita. And Meita means a gvul, a limit, a limitation. So he said, if you're in your own hergis and your own yeshus and your own feeling, then you're in gvul. This you can, this you will, this you won't, you're all locked up. You're in Mitzrayim. He said, the only way to get out of Mitzrayim, you got to get rid of the chometz. And he said, therefore, once a year, he said, you got to get rid of the whole chometz. You understand? You have to get rid of the whole being locked up in your own self, and then you can live a kosher Yiddish year. And therefore, it's a very amazing thing. It's written in the Kisvei Arizal, and everybody goes really to town about this. The Arizal says in the Pri Chaim, he says that it's a Kabbalah b'yadeinu, that if you are nizhar, if you're careful, of mashu hu chometz b'Pesach, lo yovi lidei chet kol oisa hashana. You won't come to sin the whole year if you're careful about a mashu hu chometz. This is what everybody's looking like a bachira, I'm the one who decides whether I do a chet or not. So he said, no, if you, it's brought down in the Siddur. And the Rebbe said once in one of the Sikhs also, the Rebbe brings down, it's not taking away your bechira, it's just giving you a special koyach, and it's like a havtoch, it's like a promise, that, if you are careful about a mashu chometz, then you're always going to be easy for you to keep away from sin, the whole year. You're assuming that the being careful about the chometz, that fixes the whole year. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says. That once a year, you got to finish with the chometz. Because the chometz, like the Derech, I said that's like the shurish of your own self. that you got to get rid of. Showing. So now, I want to get on to another thing now. And that is that there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos at the beginning of the 4th chapter that says like this: Eizehu Chacham halo yimaid mikol adam. Who is the wise man? He who is able to learn, or he learns from everybody, from every person. So I thought the question, what does it mean to learn mikol adam? So the simple pshat is that you're devoted so much to Chokhmah of the Torah and Hashem's wisdom and teaching that you're prepared to find it anyway. You find it in anybody. You see a good thing, you grab it. Yeah. That's a sign that you're really devoted. Came along the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov said an amazing thing. He said, Eizehu Chocham, that you learn from another person about yourself. That's what he said. And he said like this. He said, why is it that if I look at another person and I see a fault in him? It happens. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. You look at somebody else, and you think, shame that he's like that, being a good person. You criticize somebody else, and you feel very, very righteous. You're criticizing somebody else. So the Baal Shem Tov says, you know why you saw that fault in the other person? Because you got it. And that's all Hashgacha Pratis. Why did Hashem show you that fault in the other person? Because he wanted you should realize that you got it in yourself. Halo yimaid mikol adam means that from every person you can learn b'negeh to yourself. And everything is Hashgacha Pratis. Why did Hashem show you and make you comment about that fault in the other person? Because he wanted you to learn that you really got it. That's why you see it. That's why they showed it to you in the other person. And he said, when you see a fault in another person, then that's like looking in a mirror. Exactly, that's what's written. B'Shem Baal Shem Tov. That's like you look in a mirror. So when you look in a mirror, you see exactly what you look like. You can't hide anything. If you got a fault, that's noticeable. The mirror shows you the fault. So he said, that's exactly when you look at another person and you see a fault, it's like looking at your own image. At the person. You're seeing that fault in him because you really got it. And you're shown that fault in order to realize that you've got to correct it. You've got to correct it in yourself. I don't know if you guys realize what an unbelievable thing that is. And he goes on to say at the Baal Shem Tov that there happened an amazing story. So the guy said, well, I think come with another story. This one's really good to hear. The Baal Shem Tov said that if you see another person do an Aveira, you see him do something, and Pishach Hanorach, or according to Poiskim, or according to Pnimius, or you shouldn't really do that, then the reason you saw that, because you got that in a delicate way, you have it in yourself. That's the reason you saw it. Yeah. You really shouldn't look around to see other people's faults.
You should.
You shouldn't, huh?
You should. You find out about yourself.
Yeah. So he said, there's a reason, of Amela, that comes out of Lafizeh, that if I see, for example, Chas v'Shalom, somebody machal Shabbos, Chas v'Shalom, that's a simon that I got to polish up my keeping of Shabbos. I got to try and find in myself something that I'm not careful about on Shabbos. I should look out for. And an amazing thing that the Baal Shem Tov once walked out into his backyard or into the street immediately near where he was on Shabbos, and he saw another Yid do something he wasn't supposed to do on Shabbos. And he had a terrible Chalisha Hadas, how do you say Chalisha Hadas? He got terribly upset. And he said, if I saw another Yid, Mechal Shabbos, that's a sign that I got something that I haven't, I've got to, look after when I get to Chil Shabbos. So he didn't know what it was. So he prayed and he prayed and he prayed to him, and they should show him what is it he did wrong. So they showed him the following. Here, there's an amazing thing. Once the Baal Shem Tov met up, or he was Makabel in his house, I guess, and this person was a big Talmud Chacham, but an emerson Talmud Chacham. And he said the Baal Shem Tov didn't sort of give him the full cover that you're supposed to give a Talmud Chacham. He sort of was a little bit easy about 1 or 2 points there, and he didn't give it. And so the Gemara, the Zohar Kodesh says, right near the beginning, the Zohar Kodesh says that an emerson Talmud Chacham is called Shabbos. His name is Shabbos. An emerson Talmud Chacham is Shabbos. Why? For the whole week he's like Shabbos. He's not really in this world, he's just in good things. He said, so he's called Shabbos. So they said, because you didn't show him the right cover 100%, and he said, you were Mechal Shabbos. That's what they said to the Baal Shem Tov. And then the Baal Shem Tov's eyes jumped out. One thought he was Mechal Shabbos. So he said, what's my tikkun? What can I do? What can I do to fix it? They said, you have to find a Talmud Chacham and be him Meshaletim. Very good. Look after him and do it with absolute devotion, then you'll fix it up. He said, the Baal Shem Tov, okay. So he said, who is a big Talmud Chacham? Who is the Talmud? So they revealed to the Baal Shem Tov from heaven that in that particular time, the real Talmud Chacham was the great author of the Sefer B'cher Shiur. It's not a tremendously well-known sefer, it's a very holy sefer on Yeridea. It's got to do with Hilchos Shchita and Hilchos Treifas and other things which have to do with Yeridea. And he wrote a pirush, the B'cher Shiur, and he wrote this amazing pirush on the Hilchos Treifas, Hilchos Shchita, and a few other simonim. So they said to him, Min HaShamayim, that he is the emerson Talmud Chacham in this particular time where you're living and where you're living. So you've got to go serve him. You have to go and do something. So the Baal Shem Tov goes all the way over to him, and he meets the Baal Shem Tov, because you heard about the Baal Shem Tov. He was very happy the Baal Shem Tov came to see him, and he's trying to sort of figure the Baal Shem Tov, how can he do something, be Meshalet him, without letting on that that's what he's after. How can he do it? Because if he tells him he wants to serve him, then he's going to say, me, you serve me, he knows that he's not going to be matzliach. So what happened was that the Rebbetzin came in and she brought a cup of tea. She brought a cup of tea for both of them, with a bit of sugar or something like that. So immediately the Baal Shem Tov jumped up, and he took a bit of sugar and put it in the tea of the cup that was meant for the B'cher Shiur, and he lifted up the cup and he put it close to the B'cher Shiur. And the B'cher said to him, listen, I don't really need you to do that, Baal Shem Tov, but I can do it myself. And the Baal Shem Tov said, no, that's okay. And so then when he got out of the house, all of a sudden from heaven, they revealed to him that he'd fixed it up. He'd fixed up everything. He said he was Meshalet, a Talmud Chacham. A Talmud Chacham was Shabbos. So he fixed up Shabbos. So we see that the whole thing happened because he saw somebody be Mechal Shabbos. And he knew from that there must be a problem with his Shmir Shabbos. So they revealed to him on Hashemayim this whole matter. Now, it's Philip Floyd. Yeah. So, comes along another Sefer, not a Chabad Sefer, but another very holy Sefer, the Tildas Young of Yosef. He was one of the first Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov. And he says, not only if you fix up that matter, not only you fix up yourself, but you also fix up the other guy. The one that you saw do the sin, he took it to the sin. Why did you see it? Because you got to be taking what's by you. You got to fix up what's by you. But by fixing up what's by you, you take away from him that he should never do it again. You purify him. And he learns it in the pasuk, you know, in the Sefer Vayikra, there's a person who's called a Matzorah. You know what a Matzorah is? They call him, you know,
Leper.
Yeah, but that's not the right word, but anyway, leper, yeah. So, the Matzorah, it's written, Zois Teres HaMatzorah, yeah, B'yoim Taharozeh. At the beginning of Matzorah, this is the way we purify a Matzorah, on the day of his purification. So the Baal Shem Tov said, what's this B'yoim Taharozeh? You've already said, Taharos HaMatzorah, what is B'yoim Taharozeh? So he said like this, the word Matzorah is a strange word. So what it really means, he says, Moichi Ra, that you take out evil. So he said, you're taking out evil from somebody that you've seen that he has evil. And your job, the reason you saw that is you've got to take it out of him. You've got to moichi, right? You've got to take out the evil. How do you do that? Beyond taharosoi, that you make yourself tahar. You fix yourself up for what you saw. That person that mentioned you got it. You fix it up and you take out his evil. Moichi, right? You take away his evil. I would have thought a few people would.
Yes, that's huge.
I'm getting old, so I sit on my chair, but once upon a time I would have rolled off my chair, you know.
Yes. It's pretty rolling
I
right
mean,
there. We're trying to control ourselves.
that's an amazing thing. Unbelievable. And therefore, there's when I get to the Matzorah, there's another Mishnah in Masechta Negoim. It's way down. Tahar is near the end of all the Mishnahs, and it's written over there that if you find a sign of a Torah, you have to bring it to the Kohen. Only the Kohen can pass it. So it's written that a Kohen can see everybody's signs and he can pass it, but not his own. A certain Kol Negoim Roya Odom Chutz Minigei Atzmai. A person can see and decide about all the Negoim apart from his own. Talking about a Kohen. But he's not allowed to decide his own. And so the simple reason is, because about his own, you know, he's got what we call partiality. And he thought since he's Negoim about it, he might be Maker, you know. You probably looked and say, I got time to be a Matzorah, I can't accomplish it quite. He said, well, he'll find a way to pass it. Therefore, he's not allowed to look at his own Negoim. Came along the Baal Shem Tov, and he touched like this, and he said, he put a comment on it. He said, Kol Negoim Roya Odom, Chutz, then comma, Minigei Atzma. And he said, all the Negoim that a person sees outside, in other words, outside himself, where do they come from? Minigei Atzma. They come from his own Negoim. They come from the fact that he's got it. That's why he sees it in the other guy. As if he sees it in the other guy, he's got to fix it up. That's the Indian, that beyond Taharozi, when you become Tahar, you fix up the Maseh. That's amazing, mind-boggling. What am I trying to get at? With all that, it's an amazing thing that it comes along the great Tzorim, and on that basis of the Baal Shem Tov, that's why it's written that Lo Yira'o L'cho Chomet B'chol Gvulecha. You're not allowed to see Chomet in all of your rule. Why is it written L'cho? Lo Yira'o L'cho. So it should be written Ata Lo Tireh Chomet. Why is it written Lo Yira'o L'cho Chomet? So the Baal Shem Tov said, what does it mean, L'cho? He said, because if you, so the simple pshat is that it's, as long as it's not your chometz, then you're not chayav. Let's say you had chometz from a goy around your house, and you hadn't taken responsibility for it. If you took responsibility, then you're in a problem. But if you hadn't taken any responsibility from it, then you're not over bali roy because that chometz is sitting, even if it's sitting there in your reshut. But yeah, these Sforim say in the name of the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid, they say another idea altogether. And they say, Lo yero oya licho chomet. So what do we say was the union for chomet? How do we, chomet is the infant? Yeshes, right? Chomet is the feeling of the soul. And chomet is what caused the chedei tzadat. Chomet is everything to be angry about. Yeah, so the Chazal give out their whole cast on the chomet. So what does it mean you're not allowed to see chomet yet to yourself? It's because if you see chomet anywhere, then you're going to realize that it's l'chor. You saw that chomet because of your soul. Wherever you are, wherever, anything to do with you, you mustn't see faults in the other person. If you see faults in the other person, then you should know that you saw that fault because it's really by you. The reason you saw the chomet is in order you should fix it up by yourself. And then if you do, you help the other person also. You get him out of it also. So we just see how basically and tremendously important this whole thing is. That takes us back to the way we started the whole class. But the Arizal said that you have to be, and you even have to bring it out into Dibur. You got to say Hareini Mekabel Mitzvah. Why? Because the Moshe is like a king. You know that he's a king and he's got thousands of subjects. It's if he makes a tour. Let's say the king, makes a tour in the whole country. And he sees that all the citizens are all, angry and brigas, and they're all quarreling one with the other, and they all got tainas. So what does the king say? He said, listen, man, running this kingdom is a tremendous commitment. It's a tremendous job. But what do I need the whole thing for? I don't have any real subject. There's no oneness amongst them. They're all quarreling one with the other. They all saying in Hebrew, what do I need it for? But if he goes and he makes a journey in the whole kingdom, and he sees that everybody's together and everybody's helping one the other, and everybody's committed to love and to actors between them, and he said, oh, this is something. This is a kingdom I can build. If I give them everything I can give them, then they're going to do good things with it, and it's going to come positivity. Therefore, in the Sefer Derech Mitzvah Sacha, the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek, he says that in Mitzvah's Avos Yisrael, he says that that's why we have to say, I go back to what we started with, we have to say, B'dibur, Hareini Mekabel Mitzvahs Aseh, but that's the way our tefillahs are going to be received. Yeah? Why? Because I'm one with everybody in a way that if I see a fault, then I blame myself, and I take it back to myself, and I purify the other guy also. So everything joins together, and then there's unbelievable ability of all the prayers to go up. And David says, oh, that's the way these Yidden are looking after my world. It's kedai to answer all their requests. We'll give them everything, and then Be'ez Hashem. And so what's the Ikar request? The Ikar request is that we want Moshiach. No.
Amen.
That's what's written on the tanks. Look at what's written on the tanks. Be'avis Yisrael, Naviyat HaGoyel. It's like a little poetic statement. By loving all Yidden, we're going to bring the Redeemer. We're going to bring redemption. In other words, that's the secret to it. The secret is Emes Ha'ava, Emes Ha'atzos, always together. That will bring Moshiach Tzidkenu, taking me out. And that's why I began this year with a statement that we've got to realize that's the Ikar. And other things may be important, but the Ikar is that we're all together and we're all actors. Therefore, the Rabbi used to say the whole time, Avos Yisrael, Actus Yisrael. He used to say Avos Yisrael and oneness of all you together. And you could see it the way the Rebbe, the whole way, the Rebbe's way of functioning was he saw the whole cloud, he saw as a actors, as one entity together. And therefore you saw the way the Rebbe related to everybody by the Kosher Brachim, by the Dolanim, and those of us who were zeicher to go into Yechidah, we saw how the Rebbe received every person with such love and with such devotion to their inyan. And the Rebbe would sit up for 7 hours, 8 hours a night, starting at 8 o'clock in the evening, right through till close to 8 o'clock in the morning. He just received people. Why? Because he wanted there should be actors. That should all be all of us together. And that's what's written on the tanks. Be'avis Yisrael Naviyat Agoel, the through Av of actors, we're going to bring Moshiach. Take him out now.
Amen.
I got to go because I got to meet somebody important. And should have a good preparation for Yud Shvat and for Yud Aleph Shvat. And the Rika, we should all be together with the Rebbe in the Beis HaMikdash.
Yeah.